Hello, this is video number 3 for Trig unit number 2. And our notes today are all about using your calculator. So in the previous lesson, we've been focused lately actually on special angles, things that are relatives of 30 degrees, 45 degrees, or 60 degrees. And that's all great and very important, and you can do all of those sorts of questions without a calculator. But there are times when you're asked to find sine, cosine, tangent, etc., for angles that aren't relatives of those special angles. And that's the focus of today's lesson. What do you do when you have angles that aren't related to special angles, okay? There actually are 4 different situations that come up when using your calculator, and the key is to recognize in a given problem which one of the 4 that you are asked to be looking at that particular moment. If you can put it in a category, then it's a matter of just applying the recipe, so to speak. So the first situation is when you're asked to find sine, cosine, or tangent of a known angle. So the problem would look something like this: sine of 65, cosine 65. I happen to use 65 on all of these, but it could be any number that isn't related to our special families from the previous lesson, okay? So sine of something, cosine of something, tangent of something. That's the first situation. Okay, on your calculator, okay, and if you don't have your calculator, pause this and run and get it. But on your calculator, the first thing to check is to make sure that you have the correct mode set. Okay, so you're going to hit your mode key. Apparently, I still am on highlighter in the smartboard, so that's not so good. Let's just go back and pick up select there. I didn't know it would highlight on the calculator. That's weird. But you're going to, don't want that little yellow dot. Okay, you're going to actually select mode, and you're going to go down to degree. Okay, now if it already is on degree, then great, you're all set. But I would always check this first to make sure that you're in the right setting. Otherwise, your answers will be wrong, and you will not even really necessarily recognize it. Okay, once you have the appropriate degree, or appropriate setting to degree, then you can just type in exactly what I had on the sheet, okay? So the sine key is right here, okay, highlighted in red right now on the screen, and then I would type sine 65, okay, and then enter. It gives me my answer. Our classroom rule is going to be, if you're not sure how much to round, give me 3 decimal places. So we'd write down 0.906, okay? That part would be my answer. Cosine of 65 was the next question. Tangent 65 was the third question, okay? So those are my answers. I would write down to 3 decimal places, like I said, 0.906, 0.42, actually 3, okay, and this, okay? So my answers, 0.906. I guess not really used to how the calculator interacts, in case you can't pick up on that. So this would be 0.906, and we said this next one was 0.423, and the last one was 2.14, I think, what was the next digit, a 4 or a 5? This would be 145, okay. Excellent. Okay, so that one is a very straightforward case. Just find sine, cosine, tangent of angles. Great. Moving on. Okay, situation number 2, okay, is finding, I'll use my highlighter again so you see where I'm reading, finding the cosecant, secant, and cotangent of a known angle. Now this is a little bit different because there isn't a button that says that, cosecant, or secant, or cotangent. Those buttons are not on our calculators. However, we are smart, and we know that cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So I'm going to just think of this as I'm going to relate it, I should say, to its reciprocal function. So since cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, to find this, I can type in this. Okay, because those two, cosecant and sine, are reciprocals. Because secant and cosine are reciprocals, to find secant, I type 1 over cosine of 65, for example, and so on, okay? So why don't you do the first one with me, okay? So 1 over sine of 65 is what we need to do. I'm going to clear this, and apparently the ink stays. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we've got 1 divided by. I like to use parentheses just because I feel more confident that the calculator gets what I'm asking it. With parentheses, I'm telling the calculator sine of 65. All of that is in the denominator with those parentheses, okay? And that's the answer that I get, okay? And then I will do that for each of these others, okay? Oh, I forgot those parentheses I was talking about. And the last one. Okay, so hopefully you see all three of those. And those are the answers that I would write down. I'd write it down to 3 decimal places of accuracy. For the sake of time, I think I'm going to skip the writing down myself and just move on, okay? The third situation, now this is where things start getting tricky, you guys. These last 2 situations, when I've taught this class before, are usually where people have difficulties, okay? Situation 3 is finding the unknown angle. So you're solving for the angle when you know sine, cosine, or tangent's value, okay? So the problem would look like this. Now compare that to the first case that we have. In the first case, it was sine of angle, okay? And in this one, it's sine of something. And the something is what we don't know. So the angle is what is missing, okay? This is very important. When the angle is what is missing, we are going to use an inverse trig function, okay? That is read inverse sine. Not sine little -1, we say an inverse sine. So we take the inverse sine of that number, okay? What you're doing algebraically, I think this is important for you to know, is you're taking this equation and you're taking the inverse sine on the left and you're taking the inverse sine on the right of the equation so that inverse sine and sine cancel each other out. So you just get theta is whatever the inverse sine of this number is equal to. Okay, the way that you type that on the calculator is this. Okay, I'm going to clear that. Okay, inverse sine is found by doing second and then the sine cube. Just like that, inverse sine. And then I'll type in that decimal. Okay, and I got about 75 degrees, really close to that, okay? Why don't you try the other 2 and pause the recording and try the other 2 and then we'll check. Okay, so this was a little math humor. Did you catch it? All 3 of these answers are about 75 degrees. So if you typed in things correctly and round to the nearest, say, whole number, they would all be 75. I tried to get as close as I could, okay? So that was my little ha-ha joke to you. Okay, writing notes does get a little boring sometimes, right? Right. Okay, situation 4. This is the super, super tricky one, okay? You ready? Put on your thinking cap. Okay, these questions are finding an angle that's missing, so that's kind of like situation number 3, right? You're finding an angle that's missing. And it's also a situation sort of like case number 2. You're dealing with cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So if you recall, the tricky thing about them is there isn't a button for cosecant or a button for secant or for cotangent. Those are the trig functions that don't have their own buttons, and we're missing the angle. Okay, so these are not inverse reciprocal functions. There aren't keys for this. You have to be tricky. You have to be clever. Okay, so say the original problem was this. Okay, now because it's cosecant, I say, I don't have a cosecant button. The next step is going to be to switch it because we don't want cosecant. We want something we have a button for. So the reciprocal of cosecant is sine, and the reciprocal of this decimal is to put it as 1 over that decimal. Flip it over, okay? Then the next step has to do with the fact that we're solving for an angle. So if we want to solve for the angle, that's when we use this little inverse thing, the little -1 sign, okay? And we're going to inverse sign that fraction. So this has flipping and it has inverse. That is tricky. So we're going to go now to the calculator and make sure that you guys can do this, okay? So, oh, I forgot the highlighter again. You guys must just get so fed up with me and my old woman ways. Okay, so we have to clear this. Okay, without a highlighter on my finger. All right, then we needed to, first, I actually do this in 2 steps myself. On your sheet, it's kind of shown as 1. But first, I would flip the decimal. So reciprocal of 1.0353. So there's the reciprocal value. I'm not really sure why that showed up twice, but okay. Reciprocal value. And now I want to take the inverse sign of that. So second sign gives me inverse sign. And then I just want the number that's up above. And to do that, I would say second answer. Okay? This is a fabulous key if you weren't aware of it. This ANS stands for previous answer. So the calculator's looking at the line right above it and taking that answer from up above and plugging it into that slot. Okay, so I get 75 degrees. Now, for the other 2 problems right below this, you should also get about 75 degrees. So why don't you pause the recording and make sure that you can do that, okay? They both should have an answer of about 75. Okay, I'm almost done seeing if I can do this, all right? So for the one that said secant, I did my division problem here, and then this was my answer that was close to 75. And now I was just doing the last problem and realized it wouldn't quite fit on the screen. So I thought I'd do that last part with you. So this is the tangent value now because I flipped cotangent, so that 3.732 is tangent. So I'm going to inverse tangent that number. And that's what I would get, okay, about 75 degrees, all right? This last part about grade resistance, I just noticed that there is a typo in how it printed in your notes, which makes me feel very bad. It should be a little more organized, a little bit like this, but actually now on this screen I see that my beautiful mystery machine drifted off to the side and the triangle's gone. Okay, but you should have these statements. And there's a weird page break on yours. Okay, so it should be something like this. And I think I would like to do these live with you. So remind me tomorrow in class, I guess, yeah, the next time we see each other in class, remind me that I need to do the grade resistance part with you because I just think that's too hard for you to learn from a video. There also is a page in your homework packet that looks like this. This is the homework that goes along with this lesson. In your notes packet, there's some problems we'll also do in class. But I think this is a good leaving off point. We've done the 4 cases. So we need to do grade resistance in class and a little bit of practice with your calculator. So make sure you bring your calculator to class. It's not something you can fake your way through. All right? See you later. Thanks for listening and taking notes.